Welcome to Chemical Kafka, where there is no freedom without chemical freedom. Today we're going to talk about an article that was in the Washington Post that is actually a couple of months old now, but it's worth taking a look at this because it relates a lot to things that are happening in the news today. And we're also going to talk about some of those eventually. So, if nothing else, this will be just a little bit of background for us. Basically, what the article you can see here, DEA slowed enforcement while the opioid epidemic grew out of control. And this article from the Washington Post goes on to describe a little bit about how that happened. Uh, basically, uh, it gives a little history about the DEA beginning to target wholesale companies that distribute tablets, or they call them pills here, to pharmacies. Now, these wholesalers, they don't ever see patients, they don't ever see pharmacists, they don't ever see prescribers. They just get orders and fulfill them. It's a wholesale type business. It's like a warehouse type setup. They get orders, they fulfill the orders. So this is what the DEA is interested in. And apparently, they start off looking at two major drug companies. Doesn't really say here which drug companies, but it's probably Purdue Pharmaceuticals. And there was a meeting about doing this, and one of these employees of the DEA, one of the investigators, was basically told, hey, maybe we don't want to go after these companies quite so harshly. Maybe we want to slow down, gather some more facts, try to find out what's going on instead of just doing the Rambo thing and piling out there. So um, there's going to be a conflict set up just because of this very difference in philosophy, whether they're just out to punish people or if they're really there to try to help people understand better what they should be doing. So, in the view of some folks at the DEA headquarters were delaying and blocking enforcement actions. And uh, if you believe there's an epidemic going on and people are dying from this excess of tablets on the street, then certainly you don't want to delay that. It's about 12,000 people per year that die from this, so for the entire United States. Um, and there were some people thinking that enforcement was very low. One of the administrative judges that handles some of the cases, that was his point of view on this. And so that's included in the article. And there was a gentleman at the Cincinnati field office, uh, again from the DEA, that says, I don't know how many lives could have been saved if the process was done quicker. So you've got some people in the DEA saying, hey, people are dying out here, and some people in the more central office saying, maybe we need to slow down, try to understand the problem a little bit more. And it's interesting how much of this is taking place in Ohio, by the way. That is very interesting, and we don't see any mention of the Ohio State Board of Pharmacy in this article, which is also quite interesting. Of course, it's just one article, and it's the Washington Post. It's a national type story, but a lot of this does take place in Ohio, and it is sort of interesting that the article is about 29 pages, and the Ohio Board of Pharmacy is not mentioned even one time in terms of trying to come to grips with this. Uh, so the DEA is called to task for maybe not taking on as many cases as it should, and they have a couple of really interesting quotes here. They say, quote, we combat the opioid crisis in many ways, criminally, civilly, administratively, and through robust demand reduction efforts. This is uh, sort of a nonsense type of statement here. Um, this doesn't really explain anything. I imagine they're saying, well, we were just basically too busy doing these other things, and we couldn't step in to do the enforcement actions like we thought, like some people thought we should have been doing. And one of my favorite quotes from this article here is they go on to say, we have legacy stuff we need to fix, but we now have good folks in place and are moving in the right direction. Wow, these guys must have a special school that they go to learn how to talk this way. We have legacy stuff we need to fix. Next time your supervisor calls you to task because you're not doing your work, just say, well, I'm working on legacy stuff. I don't even know what that means. Legacy just means stuff from the past. So I suppose they were working on legacy stuff. Now, the article goes on to discuss this company, Purdue, and they are the makers of OxyContin, which is sort of viewed as the bad guy, both the company and the medication here, the chemical. And the thought here is that they were actually persuading doctors to prescribe this OxyContin for a lot of things that maybe it wasn't really proper for. Some minor pain and things like that, when it's actually a very strong kind of medicine used for more severe types of pain. And there's even some suggestion that this company was creating its own demand for this product by stressing how bad pain was and how we needed to stamp it out. We see these campaigns all the time. We have a war on pain, we have a war on drugs, we have a war on poverty, we have a war on racism, we have a war on potholes in the street. So this was one war, which was followed by another war, and this is Purdue Pharma in the middle of that. There was one gentleman that the quote here goes on to say. He's questioning somebody's motive, and they just didn't think that the central office was being aggressive enough. And we also have a lady, this was also happening in Ohio. Kathy Cheney was DEA's group supervisor in Columbus and was seeing this sort of battle for how to proceed. Should we do more enforcement? Are we doing the proper amount of enforcement? Do we need to change anything? Is this actually something that we need to do differently? And it's interesting that the Ohio Board of Pharmacy is actually located in Columbus, Ohio. Now, they're not mentioned in this article, and it's again, I'd say it's just one article, and they can't mention everything there. But it is sort of interesting that the Board of Pharmacy doesn't seem to be playing any role in this scenario whatsoever. They're, they clearly have authority. There are medications being shipped from Ohio to Florida, as this article goes on to point out. And there's no indication in this article that maybe the central office for the DEA isn't doing something, but at least the Ohio Board of Pharmacy is stepping in to try to help. There's no indication of anything like that. And part of this, what makes this difficult is the wholesalers, such as McKesson that's mentioned here. One of the things that they are now really required to do is to report so-called suspicious orders. This was from online pharmacies that they were talking about back in 2007. We really don't see that as much anymore. But a suspicious order, I guess you know one when you see one. I'm not sure. this is one of those law enforcement jargons where, of course, the law enforcement knows what is suspicious, and they're not quite sure how they can articulate why it's suspicious. It's just based on their training and experience, vast as it is and infallible. However, it's not always clear. Apparently, in this case, to McKesson, it wasn't clear that there really was any suspicious activity. If they thought it was suspicious, perhaps they might have reported it. There was another wholesaler, Cardinal, did not notify the DEA or cut off the supply of drugs. Again, these people are wholesalers. They get orders, they're a warehouse, they get an order, they put the stuff in the truck drives it to wherever it's going. And they're being called to task here for not getting more involved in policing this problem that the DEA itself can't fix. The DEA's view seems to be, we can't fix this problem, so we're going to go out and blame other people because they're not fixing the problem. And Cardinal is mentioned here. There was also some discussion in the article here about Cardinal and wanting to talk with the DEA. This particular investigator was sort of, giving them a hard time, and the Cardinal people, and as you're going to see here, the CVS people said, "Hey, let's talk to somebody in Washington. Let's talk to somebody in charge here, so we can figure out what exactly you want us to do, what you think we should be doing, and see if we can't just try to understand better what the situation is." And so some people viewed that as trying to do an end around the law enforcement aspect of things by going sort of to the central office and maybe trying to settle things without working directly with the investigators. However, if you're really not getting anywhere with the investigators, they won't give you any information. They ask questions, but they don't answer any, which is, generally the way it goes. We'll answer the questions. If we think you're giving us the wrong answer, then you'll pay for it eventually. We also see in the article here, like I said, CVS lawyers are, it's suggested that they were basically trying to do the same thing. They were trying to cooperate while some of the people in the DEA actually wanted to punish them, and we will see that. So the DEA apparently looked at their standards, and they wanted to look at the matter of intent. You believe these wholesalers are selling too many drugs to the pharmacies? Are they doing that knowing that this stuff is ending up on the streets? How could they know that? How could they possibly know that? The pharmacies, they are selling this, they're filling prescriptions, and the suggestion is that they're supposed to know the stuff is going out on the street. How are they possibly going to know that? Unless they're getting very large quantities very, very close together. It's gone to the other direction now where even getting a prescription filled 1 or 2 days early is difficult at some places because there's such a phobia about actually giving people this kind of medicine, which leaves a lot of people in pain and suffering. So here we see this Cheney is mentioned again. She's a former DEA supervisor in Columbus. And, she does say here that, hey, there was a distribution facility in Ohio, and they were selling a lot of these tablets to pharmacies in Florida, but there were other facilities down in Florida that she thought should have been selling them. In other words, she thought it was suspicious they were being bought from Ohio. What did the Ohio Board of Pharmacy do about it? Well, again, it's not mentioned in this article whatsoever. We don't know. Maybe they did something that was really important, and these guys just, in their investigation of this whole mess, they just didn't realize what a great job they were doing down there in Columbus. But it certainly doesn't come out here. So they have these pills going from Ohio to Florida. She eventually gets sort of fed up with it, retires in 2013. Uh, she uh, she says that she joins the DEA because of her personal loss. Her mother became addicted to Percocet and died from an overdose. Here's her picture. She looks like a nice lady. You know, hate to hear about her mother, but you know, when you have people getting into law enforcement because of their own personal negative experience in the past, sometimes you do have to kind of think about that. Do they come in with maybe a little bit too much excitement in the punishment aspect mindset? Uh, maybe, because this lady's mother had a problem, she's just thinking everybody that writes a prescription for Percocet or every pharmacy that fills a prescription for Percocet, they're they remind her of somebody that killed her mother, and so she really can't think straight. Um, it is a risk that is run in these kind of cases if people are not able to be objective, and it seems like that is possibly something that was going on here. So eventually, the pharmaceutical industry goes on the offensive, and their view is, look, if we can't get the DEA to work with us, we'll just have Congress change the law. We have more money than God. We or put some of these people in office, and we're not going to let the DEA just come in here and take our business away from us. Not to mention these people that are suffering because they can't get their medication. Of course, the companies are more interested in their money than the people, but uh, I'm sure that was part of the selling point for it. So they come up with this thing, Ensuring Patient Access and Effective Drug Enforcement Act. Barack Obama signed this into law, and it had the the intended effect. This this investigator said, "What you're doing is filing a bill that will protect defendants in our cases." To which they said, "Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. Maybe they shouldn't be defendants in your cases. Maybe that's exactly why we're doing this, because we just don't think this. You're basically just going too far." And it says here that Congress was sending DEA a message: you should take a serious look at your regulatory culture and seek collaboration with legitimate companies that want to do the right thing. Um, you know, it's hard to argue with that. Um, Again, the law enforcement folks, sometimes they just simply can't get beyond uh, their little piece of the pie, which is to um, take things from companies, put people in jail, etc. And sometimes that's just a very bad idea, and they can't see it. So as a result of that, now we have a standard that says the DEA must show an immediate threat rather than an imminent threat to the public in order to step in and lock drugs up. Um, Apparently, that is more difficult for them to do. The pharmaceutical companies feel a little bit better about this, and long and short of it was they got what they wanted, and so in the process of you know being extremely aggressive here, the DEA has actually just made their job more difficult And that's not what they want, but that is what Congress wants. They want to make their job more difficult because they don't want to make it easy for them to harass people that shouldn't be harassed. So, uh, to conclude the article here, it says, and again, this one investigator says, um, you know, uh, speaking of the industry here, the idea that they're going to say, I'm sorry I violated the law, give me another chance and I'll make it right, without having some type of punishment, to me is outrageous. Again, uh, for this guy, it's all about the punishment. Uh, Even after all this is done, we still hear the tune, but what about the punishment? What about the punishment? What about the punishment? And uh, I suppose if you work in this particular field, that's what you're trained to do. You're trained to think about punishment. Um, there's there's no question but that the bad guys are bad. You know who those bad guys are. You know that they've done something bad. And what was their intent? Well, we really don't care about that. Did they really know what was going on? Were they knowingly making this situation worse? Um, well, um, it's hard to know that. But the DEA does seem just bent on punishing, and this is sort of what's behind this article here. So take a look into this if you'd like to know more about it. We'd also appreciate your comments, and if you have something to add to it, we would certainly like to know that so that we might include it in some future material on the subject, because this is something that is still going on. Thank you for your attention.